Canadian doctors have now begun transplanting organs harvested from individuals killed through Canada's euthanasia program.
A new poll shows the NDP Premier David Eby is now tied or ahead of BC Conservative leader John Rustad in public opinion on several issues, including crime.
A Conservative MP grilled the Liberal government over its ban on nicotine pouches, highlighting how contradictory the law is when compared to the Liberals' stated goal to reduce smoking levels in the country. Hello Canada, it's Tuesday, October 7th, and this is the True North Daily Brief. I'm Cosmin, Dzsurdzsa.
And I'm Geoff Knight.
We've got you covered with all the news you need to know. Let's discuss the top stories of the day and the True North exclusives you won't hear anywhere else. Canadian doctors have performed a successful heart transplant using an organ from an assisted suicide donor. The 38-year-old donor, who had ALS, recently underwent medically assisted suicide and had consented to organ donation before the procedure. According to a case report published in June by physicians from the Ottawa Hospital and the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, the donor's heart was removed within minutes of death, reanimated, and transplanted into a 59-year-old man in Pittsburgh. The recipient was discharged 20 days later in good condition. This is believed to be the first recorded heart transplant after assisted suicide, with previous donations involving lungs, kidneys, and livers. Since assisted suicide became legal in 2016, organ donation following euthanasia has steadily increased. According to the Canadian Institute for Health Information, 7% of all deceased organ donors in 2024 died through assisted suicide. That year, 5% of all transplants used organs from such donors. A review cited in both LifeSite News and the National Post noted that at least 235 assisted suicide patients have consented to donate their organs since 2016. Of 286 international organ donations after death cases documented up to 2021, 136 occurred in Canada, placing the country at the forefront of the practice. Geoff, what are some of the critics of Canada's assisted suicide program warning about this, particularly how far it's gone, the numbers that we're seeing of people choosing to die this way? And what are the potential implications of allowing recipients of medically assisted suicide to donate their organs?
Yeah, Cosmin, critics are raising some serious red flags about this heart transplant case and the broader trend of organ donation after assisted suicide. They're worried that it could lead to a slippery slope where the program is seen more as a way to harvest organs rather than purely as a compassionate end-of-life option. Organizations like LifeSite News and the National Post have highlighted concerns that this practice might pressure vulnerable individuals into choosing MAID, not just for personal reasons, but also to benefit others, potentially undermining the voluntary nature of the decision. There's also the ethical dilemma of whether the organ donation process influences the timing or decision to proceed with MAID, as noted in a UN report from 2025 that recommended disqualifying non-terminal patients from euthanasia. The potential implications are pretty heavy. There's a fear that it could devalue life, especially for those with disabilities or chronic conditions who might feel like a burden or see MAID as their only contribution. Plus the international attention, with Canada leading in 136 out of 286 cases by 2021, which suggests this could set a precedent that other countries might follow, raising global ethical concerns about the intersection of euthanasia and organ donation. It's a pretty complex issue, and the worry is that without strict safeguards, it could lead to unintended consequences that blur the line between choice and coercion. BC NDP Premier David Eby has pulled ahead of BC Conservative leader John Rustad and is now leading or tied with the opposition on several critical issues, including crime. According to a new Research Co poll, the BC NDP are 6 points ahead of the BC Conservatives when it comes to vote intention. When voters were asked to rank who is more fit to be premier, Eby, 37%, gained a 16-point lead over Rustad, 21%. When broken down by issues, Eby is seen as better suited than Rustad to handle 7 key issues, including education, 44% to 26%, the environment, 43% to 24%, healthcare, 41% to 28%, Housing and poverty, 40% to 28%. Energy, 40% to 29%. The economy, 38% to 31%. And accountability, 37% to 30%. The two leaders are tied on crime and public safety at 34% each. Crime has been a sticking point for Eby as he tried to distance himself from unpopular policies like decriminalization and his own past advocacy, which includes penning a book titled, quote, How to Sue the Police and Private Security in Small Claims Court. Housing, poverty, and homelessness remain the top concerns for British Columbians, with 30% identifying the issue as their top priority, down 4 points. So, Cosmin, what could have made Rustad fall so far in public opinion? What are British Columbians who were his base in the last election saying?
Yeah, Geoff, there's several problems that seem to be compounding for the BC Conservatives, but in particular with John Rustad. He faces internal divisions with his own party, but I think also the base has sort of lost faith in John Rustad as being the capable person to represent them. And when I saw the fact that I think this is the only conservative party in the entire country, a provincial conservative party, that is polling worse on a topic like crime than anywhere else. It's astounding to me that the BC Conservatives are performing this bad. They're tied with David Eby on crime. I mean, it's ridiculous. David Eby has, in many ways, played a direct role in how bad crime has gotten in British Columbia through the disastrous policies that he's pushed his entire life, even before he went into office and pursued politics. As you mentioned in the article, he advocated for criminals to essentially sue the police and get away with crimes. You know, they've overseen the criminals being let out on bail. The BC Prosecution Service has not done its job. So it's quite astounding that this is where that party has come. And we're talking about a party that essentially rose from virtually nothing. They were a force to be reckoned with decades ago, but it was just in the last few years that the BC Conservatives were revived and turned into what it is now. But the question is whether John Rustad's time as leader has served its purpose. And I think a lot of people are looking at this poll today and how remarkably poor the BC Conservatives are performing, especially on those core issues. And they have a lot of questions to ask themselves as a result. A Conservative MP has slammed the Liberal government's ban on commercial nicotine pouches, arguing that prohibiting smoking cessation alternatives makes no sense in the effort to reduce cigarette use. Conservative MP Burton Bailey questioned the Liberals' strategy to reduce the number of Canadian smokers to 5% by 2035 by banning products used to quit. He asked why the government wouldn't reverse its commercial ban on nicotine products.
Data from 2022 to 2025 would suggest that the use of nicotine pouches as an alternative to smoking cigarettes had a marked decrease in cigarette sales, from the point of Health Canada regulation of about 4%. Why was the sale of pouches approved by Health Canada in the first place?
Nicotine pouches were approved as one of the products that exist in terms of other ways in which people can consume nicotine, and that it is less harmful than cigarettes.
The Liberals' ban implemented last year prohibits the sale of nicotine pouches in convenience stores, but still permits select brands to be sold by pharmacists, while several flavored options have been outright banned. Bailey asked the Deputy Health Minister why the government doesn't allow convenience stores to sell the product, making the less harmful smoking cessation product more available to Canadians with valid ID. The Deputy Minister noted that the ban was to prevent children from accessing nicotine pouches and that Health Canada, quote, will continue to review and consider in order to inform the government's regulations. Bailey noted that cigarettes are still available with proper ID, but nicotine pouches, which the deputy minister admitted were a healthier alternative and used to get off cigarettes, were less available.
Why is it easier to buy cigarettes when we want people to stop smoking? Why aren't we allowing these nicotine replacement pouches to be bought in convenience stores like cigarettes?
So the ministerial order in respect of nicotine replacement therapies was put in place as a way to protect youth from harms of nicotine replacement therapies, nicotine replacement pouches. And that was the reason behind the ministerial order.
But cigarettes are still available with proper ID. Why can we not have the same for replacement therapy?
Geoff, to me, it doesn't make sense that the Liberals would go and ban nicotine pouches, which, nicotine is a highly addictive substance, but let's be real, it does not contain all of the poison, tar, etc. that is inhaled via cigarettes, yet they still allow the sale of cigarettes across the country at convenience stores and other locations. So what are people saying about this and the logic behind the Liberals' commercial ban on nicotine pouches?
Yeah, Cosmin, experts and critics have been pretty vocal about all this. Their arguments are all over the place. You have Anne Kothawala, the president and CEO of the Convenience Industry Council of Canada, and she's been pushing hard, saying the ban is contradictory because it bans a product that's actually helping people quit smoking while still allowing cigarettes to be sold with proper ID. She's argued that outright bans just push consumers back to the black market, which is a big deal because these illegal sales could be funding organized crime, and there's no health regulation on these black market goods, making them even more dangerous. Plus, she's pointed out that convenience stores are everywhere, in nearly every riding and township across Canada, so a failed convenience store industry could be a disaster for the Canadian economy. During the last election, conservatives like Burton Bailey echoed this, questioning why the government wouldn't reverse the ban to make these products more available, especially considering they're a healthier alternative. Pharmacy unions have also chimed in, saying they don't want the responsibility of deciding who can and can't access nicotine pouches, which adds another layer to the criticism. It's a mess, really, with everyone from industry leaders to health professionals pointing out how the ban doesn't make sense and could have some pretty nasty side effects.
That's it for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. You can stay on top of new episodes every weekday by subscribing to the Daily Brief on iTunes and Spotify. Also, while you're at it, make sure to hit us with a 5-star rating and please leave a review.